So I guess the album is very like it's supposed to be this cohesive idea of moving through a relationship. So the idea of starting off and feeling sort of elated in some ways, and sort of like very positive and very like looking for something and finding it. And then as you move throughout the EP, you're discovering essentially either the fatal flaws within the relationship and the general process of it deteriorating. So to a certain degree, it is very much the story of a relationship. So it's the story of discovery and then going through what you would consider to be problems or the deterioration of the relationship, and then finally ending inside of the reflection idea of understanding that relationship as a memory. So formally like a photograph in some ways, but at the same time, understanding it in the construct of what it sits in, which is the idea that all relationships will start and will end. And that if you love somebody, it can never end well. So it is sort of the process, or it was the process of me discovering that throughout a relationship and understanding the processes and the steps taken throughout a relationship and what they entail. So Maybe Never is this very difficult idea, which is the idea that things could possibly happen and they could not. And being stuck in that space of sort of, I guess, perjury in some ways, like an in-between space where you're not sure where it's going to land. And in this case, it did not follow through to its ultimatum, right? Or to its final idea. It ended in the way it ended. So Maybe Never is very much a play on the idea of ambiguity within a relationship, within the concept of what you consider to be a relationship. Fundamentally, like, beautiful part of doing the EP for me is the fact that it was a body of work and I could somehow describe each point or step in my process of understanding a relationship, or even in myself reflecting through those ideas that you go through when you do have a relationship. And even if it's something that did end in a great story, in a beautiful romantic story, at one point it will end, because that is the nature of life. So therefore, it's still understanding that relationships have ebb and flow, and that there isn't this consistent elation that you constantly experience. It is something and somewhat of signing up for hurt, signing up for pain, and signing up for some form of ambiguity. I think that every single relationship, regardless of how successful it is, does experience some form of like on the ledge, not really sure where it's going to land, and you're trying to figure out whether you're willing to take that jump or not. And that was sort of the concept of Maybe Never, is like, maybe I could do it, never, I'm not going to, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. So it's the in-between space of relationships, which I feel like is not necessarily explored a lot. I don't have a particular way that I'm like, okay, this is how I write music. A lot of the time it starts from me sitting and fiddling on the piano and like singing things and singing a line that made sense to me at one point in time. And then looking at that and going like, that's a cool line. That's a cool melody. I like the way it sits. Something stands out to me about it. And then going down and thinking about it and going like, okay, cool. Well, what does that line actually mean to me? Where is that coming from? Why is that coming? So a lot of like music for me is just a form of self-therapy in a lot of ways. Like, it's like journaling for me. And then after I've recognized something that I feel has potential or makes sense to me, and something that I really feel strongly about, I then flesh it out, move it around, try and create something that I feel like still substantiates that idea, but is pulling it into a space that is either more substantial or more voluminous. And then after I've gotten through maybe 50% of the process, I look at it and I go, cool, this is at a space where I feel like it's got a good structure, it's got a good foundation, I feel like it's strong within itself as a singularity. And then we'll pull it into a space where I go to Dom and Jude and then go like, okay, what are you seeing here? Are you seeing things that I don't see? Do we all think this is good? Am I a little bit crazy and it's just garbage and this one just needs to sit in the closet for the rest of my life, or whatever it is? And often they'll say, yeah, this is a cool one. This one, I don't really see too much legs on. That sounds more like that's just your personal thing. And sometimes they'll be like, this is really cool. I feel like we need to change this because that feels a bit too similar, because as an, you go through stages of what you want to sound like. So therefore you end up going like, I'm going to put this in. And they go like, okay, well, that just sounds like the last one, or it sounds like this and that's too close, or whatever it is, and changing small things here and there. But the core of it really, for me, conceptually, and the base of where it comes from, which is generally like a melody or a chorus that I put together, that always stays the same. And then we move it around, and then it grows and it grows into like a bigger idea that now is solid within its structure. I record always with Dom and Jude from Easy Freak, who are amazing. They're just generally incredible people when it comes to not just like musicality, but understanding how music works and not bringing egos into the room. And that's something you really notice when you spend a lot of time with musicians. A lot of it becomes about like, I wrote this, I did that. And when I work with Dom and Jude, that never really becomes the case. It becomes, what is best? Is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Do we put it in? Do we not put it in? In general, for me, recording is just, it's really tiring. It's really fundamentally challenging, but at the same time, it's very rewarding, just a beautiful thing in a lot of ways.